the Bush family.
Yes.
And you know what? We'll talk about that. We'll get into some depth on that. Was there a specific question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, because everyone that was alive at the time and was old enough always remembers where they were. And whenever he was asked that question, he conveniently said he couldn't remember. But there was a memo to the FBI talking about a George Bush CIA agent.
Well, right. What you're mentioning things that are out there, and what Family of Secrets does is it goes much further with the material you're talking about to explain how it all links up. So I hope we have a chance to go into that.
Oh, we're definitely going to go into that. Let's before we do that, let's go to Kermit. Kermit's calling from Ritzville. Where's Ritzville, Kermit?
About 60 miles west of Spokane, Washington.
Oh, you're in Washington. Well, hi. Welcome to KGO. You're on with Russ Baker. Go ahead.
Good to be with you. Mr. Baker, I've been an admirer for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this program, KGO, Pat Thurston, and Mr. Baker.
You're welcome.
I was wondering, is it possible that we could get a 10-hour uninterrupted doubleheader with Russ Baker and Max Blumenthal discussing Republican politics and families?
It's doubtful.
Oh, such a fantastic area.
Well, you know,
tremendous subjects. I don't have any specific questions. Just
well, you
good
know,
job.
I
Merle would be very proud of you.
Thank you very much. You know, I'd love to have a program like that, but we are a commercial radio station, so there will always be interruptions. Russ, shall we begin the delving into some of the? One of the biggest things that has happened in the United States of America in the last century was the assassination of an American president. I mean, after McKinley, John Kennedy. And that, you know, nobody has really understood this. Okay, all right, before we get to that, let me just say, I know you're coming on the air, so I do a little Googling, and I find a couple of reviews. And one was in the Washington Post, and one was in the Los Angeles Times. Now, you should know that Ray McGovern, 27-year veteran of the Central Intelligence Agency, was on the program not too long ago and was telling us a bit about the Kennedy assassination, things that we didn't necessarily know. And he also talked with us about how the CIA was involved with major media in the United States, had infiltrated, had a great deal of control. So I'm reading these reviews of your book, and I'm laughing because it's almost as if there was somebody involved in intelligence who had written these things. But they poo-pooed, one of them, I'm not sure if it was the Post or the Times, poo-pooed your book right out of the gate because you didn't believe in the single assassin theory, that Harvey Oswald was the killer and that he was a lone assassin. So immediately you were not credible. And the other reviewer, I believe, said that you were just a conspiracy theorist.
Well, you know something, I'm so far from that. I mean, 20-some years of writing and working for major news organizations. I would like to say right out of the gate that I really didn't have any particular axe to grind on the Kennedy assassination. I didn't know much about it, more than most people, and probably maybe less than most people. There's so many other things to look at, and it's such a mire to get into that whole area with all of the books that have been written and the theories. And I kind of was okay with the idea that maybe Oswald had done it, maybe he hadn't. And so I went into doing a book on the Bushes, having no intention to say anything about the Kennedy assassination. But as this caller pointed out, when I discovered that H.W. Bush had trouble remembering where he was on November 22, I thought, well, I'm already discovering these other secrets about him. I'm already discovering that he had the secret past in intelligence. I wonder why he would say that, and I wonder where he was on November 22. And so I began a whole new track of research. And what I discovered resulted in 4 chapters of new information on the Kennedy assassination. I don't want to give away everything in the book because I try to write it like a thriller and it builds and so forth. But let me point out a few things. First of all, The same man who said he cannot remember where he was appears in a
And can we just say how odd that is? I mean, people who were young children at the time remember exactly where they were and the moment they heard the news. Everybody knows where they were. Every single person. And he was not a young child at that time.
No, he was already middle age.
Yeah, and involved with the government. So you would think that of all the people in the world, he would definitely remember where he was.
Oh, and he was a Texan, and Kennedy was shot in Texas.
In Dallas.
Oh, and Bush was running for the United States Senate at the time.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make
so that's
any
a
sense.
lie. We know that's a lie.
Well, so what I did was
Unless he was high. Oh, no, this wasn't W. Never mind.
In Family of Secrets, I go into a couple of interesting things. One is a declassified FBI memo which shows that the day after the assassination, they had some consultations with other intelligence agencies about the assassination, and it names the representatives of these other agencies, a man from the Defense Intelligence Agency, and it says, by name, George Bush of the CIA was in on this briefing on November 23, 1963, about Cuban exiles, which is what I'm saying related to his offshore drilling rigs with Cuban exiles and so on. Through his whole career, later on with Iran-Contra and so forth, he was always involved with Cubans. And, of course, his son Jeb moves to Florida, gets into business with Cuban exiles, and then is elected governor on the strength largely of the Cuban support. So anyway, we have this document. So that contradicts or seems to refute his not remembering.
Didn't the CIA say that was a different George Bush?
They did, but it wasn't a different George Bush. And in fact, in Family of Secrets, I go into this other George Bush, which is a very interesting character, by the way. He was a fellow who was not even in government. He was recruited in 1963 by the CIA. They come to him out of the blue, and they say, how'd you like to try out at the CIA at a nice salary? He said, well, okay. I mean, the guy was a social worker. So they bring him in, and they put him in this low-level desk job, and they keep him right through the assassination period, and in early 1964, they get rid of him. So they only had him in right in this period. So later on, years later, when somebody said, hey, George Bush of the CIA, they said, oh, that was this other guy. It seems diabolical, but you have to understand how intelligence agencies work. Plausible deniability is the key phrase.
Yeah.
So what they do is there's a second memo. Now there's another memo, and this memo is another FBI one, but this is from their Houston office, and it says it is from November 22, from the day of the assassination, 1:45 p.m., right at the time that they're announcing that President Kennedy is dead. It says, this office received a call from a man named George H.W. Bush. It gives his home address. It says oil man, and he's calling. He says, I'm calling in from Tyler, Texas. I've heard that the president was shot, and I may have some information on who shot him. Now, even before I go any further, keep in mind, this is the same man, now we have his home address, who says he can't remember where he was that day, and here's a memo where he's calling and saying, I may know who shot the president. So obviously, he must have remembered where he was.
And he did that to establish an alibi?
Well, I'm very careful not to speculate, because I think that one of the reasons people like and trust my work is that I try to just lay out a lot of documented facts and point out some possibilities. But I'll tell you this. I did run down that lead he provided them. He did not call them and say Oswald. He called them with another name, and it was... not only was this man no threat to Kennedy, but Bush knew this man was no threat to Kennedy, because Bush knew this man. And indeed, at the very moment that Bush was calling the FBI to give the tip on this man, Bush's own assistant from the Harris County Republican Party was at the home of the suspect transacting business with him. And when it came time, when the Secret Service wanted to talk to this guy, George Bush's assistant drove the suspect, who George Bush had just fingered, to the Secret Service offices and helped clear him. So you had this kind of circular thing where everybody had an alibi for everybody.
Yeah.
And the only thing you can say about that phone call was that it served the purpose to say, I am in Tyler, Texas, i.e., I am not in Dallas. But as I point out in Family Secrets, and I just don't want to give all of these surprises away, in fact, Tyler, Texas is very, very close to Dallas. And he was traveling on a private plane, and he apparently arrived in Tyler just shortly before he made that phone call.
808-0810 is the telephone number. We'll be right back. Russ Baker, my guest. The book is Family of Secrets, and you're listening to KGO News Talk 810.